That's it.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm gonna apologize in advance. I just got a new store-bought hip. So, if I end up standing up or if I fall down or anything, just keep going, and I'll get back up sooner or later. Okay, minutes and reports received and filed.
We have the collector's July 2023 fees and the sheriff's July 2023 fees.
Okay, Commissioner Committee Liaison Reports, upcoming meetings and events.
Campbell Board of Directors meeting tomorrow, Mike Board meeting Thursday. St. Thomas Fair Picnic Sunday. Then we have the responder recognition joint council commission session Monday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And have you found out the time?
It's gonna start probably right at 6 and we'll be done by 6:30.
Okay. I think that's all I've got.
We're missing Leonard's funeral today. This afternoon, the governor signs the HB 4, which is our transportation bill in Columbia. Wednesday is Salute to America meeting, and Thursday is the ham breakfast at State Fair, and Senator Hawley has an event up there on Thursday as well. I think that's it. Oh, Thursday morning is also Road and Bridge Advisory Committee meeting. That's what I
don't
have.
have much of anything. St. Thomas, but I don't think I'll make it. And then Monday, there's another honor point out. Okay, presentation from staff, consultants, invited guest circuit judge, circuit judge, John Beaton.
Thank you. We appreciate everybody coming early this morning. I did bring donuts because I was told you ask people to show up before 9, bring donuts. So please enjoy. We're here to talk, as in accordance with the statute, we're here to meet with the commission and talk about budgets ahead of all the other budgets, which puts us in this unique position, which has happened to us for at least the last couple of years, is we get all our work done here, August and early September, and then the whole world changes between now and the end of the year. So we're going to start this at where it is. I put on top of the page that I provided you, I want to talk a little bit about capital items because that's probably the easiest to talk about. Last year we'd asked about some renovations, particularly to the Division I courtroom for the reasons expressed there. I learned from Mr. Ruther that had been approved, but no one told us. And no one came to us and said, we're going to do these, renovations, and when can we do this? No one told us that they had, because the way you do capital being separately from the regular budget process. So we still need it, and at least we didn't spend the money.
It was in the budget, it's
Yeah,
still there, so.
But that would be something, normally that's done through Greg.
Well, capital, we get a list and you guys kind of tentatively approve that list and then we wait for the departments or whoever to approach you again. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
This year I'll do a better job of, after the budget's approved, I'll send that list to each department.
Hey, Mark.
that has items.
Mark, come on up.
Anyway, I'll-
Oh, you might as well have him come up anyway.
Well, because that had happened to us 2 years ago on something else. So anyhow, and we still can't find anybody to bid us the construction of a second floor detention area, and then we probably will kind of sit on that until we figure out what you guys are going to do with the jail, because if they take down the jail, it changes the entire detention needs for the courthouse. Number 3 is actually easy. I've been working with Brian on this. What happens is, to get the best use of the cameras, we need better video cards. OSCO will let us put better video cards in. And so we've been working with Brian, and Brian has a bunch of computers that he's just swapped out, and we believe we could do those with existing equipment. So we're gonna do that, but we're not gonna need budget items for that. So other than talking about the renovation part of it, we do need a copier for pretrial. Their proposal had talked about, you know, a real smaller copier. We went through this before with upstairs with drug court and everything upstairs, and we believe we're better off getting a copier that's consistent with the entire system. And we have copiers in every division, in every unit, and that allows us to move them back and forth and some consistency with equipment. So, you know, that's what we're looking for is $2,750 for a replacement copier, assuming you can get one, because it took us like 8 months for the last one.
I think you were wise in having Mark and I come over last week and showing us the jury chairs and the peeling paint and so on and so forth. So we just need to scope that out and
Yeah, I mean,
get it started.
Yeah, I mean,
It's embarrassing, those chairs.
I mean, traditionally, that's maintenance has organized all that sort of stuff for us.
Okay.
So, I mean, we need to go out and get it done. I guess we can do that, but that's really not in our ballpark.
Well, Greg is hard to find right now because of a knee surgery, I guess, but he does answer emails and phone calls, so we'll get to work on that.
Yeah, yeah, he's gonna be out of 8 to 12 weeks. So, yeah, we need to,
I'm not the manager of the health plan. Everybody hears.
I appreciate that, Harry, your comments on it, and I know Jeff and Sam, you guys have seen it, that's a public use, those are not, people who are, I mean, those are people who are volunteering for jury service as their constitutional duty. They come in and they sit there and, the arm pads are worn off and the pads in the pews are, curled up and old and.
Right.
They can just take them off.
Well, if we have that approved.
Yeah,
this year's
I'll,
budget, let's get something rolling. I'd shoot Greg an email and see what we need to do, if we need to get Jessica and purchasing involved.
I mean, do we have to get Greg included on it since he's gone? Can we just get started with it and figure out what type of chairs?
Copy it.
I'd just include him in the email so
Yeah.
he knows what's going on and get Jordy going on it. So,
We have to find a vendor to do the chairs, and then there's to take the chairs out, get them redone, and bring them back, coordinating, because you can't really have any trials in there if everyone has to stand for 2 days.
folding metal chairs, those things are good for you.
Yeah, says the man.
I was being facetious.
We'll have Jessica follow up to get a scope of work with the judges.
Okay.
So, all right, so that's, that part of it is actually pretty simple. I think what I'd like to do, the discussion, I think will center around county payroll that we have in the court system. And so what I thought I'd do is go through everything else in the budget, and then we can talk about those things there. So, with respect to the circuit clerk's office, and that's, you know, Mark's people and the work that comes out of there, the only thing that we are changing is we adjusted the communications, the internet charges to what we're being charged. That all gets done internally over here. And I talked to Debbie, and there was a couple that had gotten sort of in the wrong account, and I think she got those fixed back up. And that's, we don't even, that's your charge to us for these things. And so I just moved that budget line up, and the rest of it we remain the same. And we're more than able to live within that budget that's there. So that's the circuit clerk. There's a payroll item in there that Mark will address when we get to that part of it. That's one. The next line, 153, is the circuit court, and that's the judges. And again, we think that we can live with all those numbers the same as last year. We've got, again, the communications number, those things like that. We've got 65 in it for jury. We don't think we'll spend that. Although we're having more jury trials, we're now beginning to hit that session where, you know, either Judge Green's trials go or my trials go. So we could have more jury trials if we had more jury resources. But we're sort of limited by what's in the building, so we spend, every other Friday afternoon trying to figure out whose trial's gonna go. And that impact it has primarily is on the criminal defendants, but at least we're getting criminal trials occurring. So we can do that part of it. The third line, or the third section, 154, is pretrial. I think the only thing we're asking to be changed, we adjusted the communications, the cell phone charges. This is the communal cell phone they use for the on-call worker. And I just adjusted those numbers to the current charges. So they would reflect those. The rest of the numbers pretty much remain the same. There's a treatment services money that's in the budget, and we worked through this with Mark. It's money we got back, and we're looking for what account we can put that in. We couldn't figure what account you were talking about. Most of my accounts in the court system are statutory, and there's not a mechanism that allows us to take money that doesn't come from a certain fee or something else like that, but we may be able to do it with.
Yeah, I think the reference to the family court account was really the old family treatment court account. We haven't had a family treatment court for a decade and a half. But that's when that funding was originally under the contract, and that's what I assume that what DMH's refund was for. That was a check we received in 2021. And so Richard Lee and then Matt Duckett left it as we talked about it as a plug, and we traced it back with Debbie's help and Mark's help to figure out that's where it came from. But I think the answer is to really just take it out of either side of the budget. That one refund that may still be in the county general revenue fund, frankly, do with it as you wish. If it goes to the treatment court fund, we can use it.
Yeah.
But the family treatment court fund doesn't exist, or the family treatment court doesn't exist anymore, so presumably back to 2005, which is when that was, that's really the same treatment court account, but.
We
That's
think
not
we
it's not
think we can
expense.
take it in that account, gets it out of the budget, which
Right,
is,
just real quick to clarify, there's $15,000. It's been in the budget the last 2 years. It was some money we got back from this old,
Yeah,
it goes way,
DMH.
money goes way back. We put it in general fund. It's been in the budget for 2 years. It's money the court needs to decide how to spend it, so they've got some of their own accounts. I was proposing we just cut them a check for this $15,000, give it to them, and they can have complete control over how it's spent, and then it's out of our budget, and we don't have to. I don't have to mess with it anymore in the budget process. It's money the court has to decide how it's spent anyway. So.
and if they sent a refund check and ended up with Richard Lee, and ended up in Richard Lee's budget, I have no idea how that happens.
I think there was a debate of some sort with the juvenile department too, with the state, so that's where we.
Because they had the words family on there, but it was really the older family treatment court program that we don't have.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna do with that. Court security, again, we've got money in the budget. We are required by statute, or the marshal statute, to send our marshals to government training with the marshal service, which they have not offered for the last 3 or 4 years, starting with COVID. So we're in the matter, and we're not the only county that's in this problem. There's probably 6 other counties that have state-funded marshals. So we've been working with the FLETC people, so Holly, you're in here somewhere, to see about them coming here. And then hosting it here. We'd have to do it in at least 2 sessions. We can't send all the marshals over, at one time for what's approximately 40 hours of training. But we're seeing about whether we could get them to come up here. We could host the training here. We could share it with other counties, and, assuming for a lot less cost than sending 4 or 5 people down to FLETC. But the statute requires this program, but they're not having it. They got out of it, you know, around with COVID, and then they've never scheduled it back in. So I know I've seen some preliminary correspondence that Holly's been working with them to say, why don't you guys come up here and present your program here? We can invite other people, we can, you know, assess them to reduce the cost of it. So that's why that money's in the budget. In terms of regular continuing education, or whatever they call it in post, you know, we're doing that. Most of our people are doing it online, so we're not having to send people out of state and doing that in the most efficient manner that is. Like I said, jury script, we're well within our budget there. As you may have seen in the paper, it does not look like we're going to try the Gibbons case in 2023. We're still scheduled to cover the Wayne County case in 2024. That's the death penalty case. Just so that Harry had asked a couple questions about it. The way this works is with the finding Judge Hickel made that she was not able to stand trial, she gets committed to the Department of Mental Health, and then they reevaluate her. They do some restoration treatment or whatever they do, and they reevaluate her in 6 months. So it'll be 6 months before we know that they'll relook at her ability to stand trial. So the rest of it, like I said, in most of those large trials we have by practice, put those separately and just kind of try to keep you guys up to date as to what's happening. Because that would, you know, either one of these trials would consume our whole budget. So that's in circuit court, other than payroll, I mean, under marshal services other than payroll. And I think that are all the things, other than salary stuff, which we'll talk about by department. Did you guys have any questions?
Refresh me on the Waynesville, or,
Wayne County?
I'm sorry, was it Wayne County? Yeah,
Yeah.
Wayne County situation.
Okay. That case comes here on a change of venue out of Wayne County. I looked everywhere I could. There's not a way that I could reject it. It is a Cole County case for all intents and purposes, except for we have the ability to charge back some of the costs to Wayne County. And I think you guys have reached out, offering them the opportunity to contribute on an interim basis, but
There was legislation that we would reach out to the state government because they would, and then they'd go to Wayne County to get it, but that has never been implemented, is that correct?
Well, it may be in the omnibus bill. I mean, this year they did things so differently. I mean, I've been over there last 3 years with Representative Veet, who has been a champion for us in this problem we did not create. And what we were looking for was a mechanism set up where Wayne County could then go to the state of Missouri and say, we need to have this murder trial, we can't afford to have this murder trial, we're having it in Cole County, could you send them some money? And what we were actually looking for was the sequestration cost, the keeping the people in the hotel, which is, you know, you look at a 3-week trial, it's a lot of money. Because we have to keep them there, and then we have to feed them and all those things like that. It's not like a traditional jury trial here. So I believe that got through in the omnibus bill, but I don't know for sure where they did that. But then the second step is finding funding for it. So they did everything in omnibus bills, and I just haven't looked. But that's what's going on with that. But we would still have to get funding for that.
Thank you.
I think we are,
Can I just say real quick, before we get on to salaries, everything else in the budget is pretty much the same, the request as last year. So I'm good with it, just a little bit extra in the
Yeah.
communication, internet area,
Well,
because
and
just
that-
the price.
right,
the
because
price gone up on it.
that's the price that, you know, Debbie says that's what we pay. And
But I'm just telling you, I'm good with everything they're requested, not count, I mean, well, we're gonna talk
We're
about
talking salary,
salaries,
yeah.
but everything else, everything looks good to me in the request, so.
Okay, I'm going back to circuit clerk. Mark, you might be able to answer this, but from the 23 amended budget to the 24 amended budget, There's a pretty big jump on the, was that the revenue you were talking about?
Oh, on the first page, that's revenue, yeah.
So.
No, well, I was just talking about the expenses,
Okay.
operating expenses. other than
I just saw there was
salary.
a big jump, well, there's a big jump there and on what the request was.
That's, on the revenue side,
They're
it's
about
not
the
really a
same.
request, it's just
Well, I know
trying
it's
to
more of an
estimate how much revenue we're
We're-
gonna get in
but
next year.
there's-
We have 12,040 Monsanto cases as of yesterday afternoon. They generate, I think, for the county, I think $9. So that's one of the reasons that and it looks weird, at least on some of the reports that I get, it looks like a negative number, but that's because we've actually collected more money than was budgeted on those. Now, that's not forever, well, I don't know how long the Monsanto thing would go on there, but it's a one-time per case. And so that's why we brought in a business that doesn't usually bring in a lot of money.
You're not here to make money?
It is government.
Yeah, I know, it's a rhetorical
But
question.
that's what that is, that's why that revenue number has increased. I don't know that it will go in the future, but as long as they're filing the Monsanto cases.
Well, the revenue and the expense both went up about 50,000, so, I mean, it was kind of a wash between both of them, but that's why I was curious where the difference was in
Revenue
it.
and the expense.
So on the first page of revenues, the total for 24 went from 112 to 165 and some change, and then on the expenses, it went from, I'm sorry, I was looking on the wrong line on the expense part, so it's actually just a revenue increased on that.
Yeah, the only-
They're
Not a
not
bad
asking
thing,
for any
so.
additional
Yeah.
expenses, like I said, other than maybe the
Okay.
phone bill and internet. but-
Yeah, I was looking at the bottom line total on that, there's a difference there, so that's why it was the same difference. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, so that's, like I said, the phone stuff. Debbie tells us what our phone bill is. And we figured out some of it, and when we went back and looked at it, because some of it you can aggregate. I've got people looking at the fax machines to make sure we have all those. I mean, I think we do, from counting them and thinking about where we have fax machines, but that's something that we should periodically look at anyway. Those are the POTS lines, the Plano telephone service lines that aren't used with the phone system, and they're needed for faxes. And we still are faxing things, despite our best efforts. All right, county, as you're well aware, most of the court staff is paid for by the state of Missouri. So for the, leaving Monsanto out, the approximately $80,000 that we send to the state of Missouri, we get back probably in excess of $2.5 million in payroll and benefits. And so compared to how it was, let's say, in the 50s, where the county paid for all of these things, judges are paid through the state, the clerks are paid through the state, the court reporters are paid through the state, and our head marshal salary is paid from the state. So, I mean, from a give and get point of view, we send them about $80,000 and we get back a fair amount of money in payroll. We do have a few county-paid positions that are there, and so the first one to talk about is we have a part-time county-paid position in the circuit clerk's office, which, its origins were as we work towards microfilming and trying to get out of the permanent record storage business. So I'm gonna let Mark explain.
As you could probably see the numbers, there's a lot of available money, but however, we only had one part-time who was only working less than 20 hours a week. So now we have two part-time, so we're gonna get 40 hours a week. So I'm asking if we can keep that 16,000 that we have in there for the part-time. What we're doing right now is basically we're doing case verifications so we can get the stuff microfilmed. And we're doing the case verification so we can get these boxes of papers out of the courthouse and in the shredder. So I actually have three part-time. One is being paid by the state, but the other two by you. And I think you're gonna see those numbers change considerably now because they're working 40 hours a week. One's working 20, one's working 19, I think. So if we can keep that the same, I would appreciate that.
does any of that have to do with the marijuana?
No, no, absolutely not.
Expungement, or what do you call it?
Well, we can talk just a little bit about that. So marijuana, as you may be aware, we passed Amendment 3, which is one of the three big challenges the court systems have faced this year. With respect to Amendment 3, we have to go through and expunge marijuana-related conviction or marijuana-related arrest and conviction information from the court records. That is much easier said than done. When you talk about misdemeanor marijuana conviction, it says possession of marijuana. That's pretty easy to find. The vast majority that we have are under a statute which says possession of a controlled substance other than marijuana less than 35 grams, which means that we have to get every file, and we have to open every file, and we have to look to see whether it was marijuana, methamphetamine, heroin, ecstasy, mushrooms, whatever it was. And then if it's heroin, then we mark the file as reviewed, not eligible for expungement, we go to the next one. But it's a lot of files, and it requires you to physically look in every case. Back to 14, we have them online, which is when we started the scanning and electronic records. But prior to 14, we have to take the number, go to the warehouse, get the file, open the file, look at the file. Then, if the file involves marijuana, that's sort of what the line is. If the file involves marijuana, then we take it, and Judge Limbaugh is taking charge of the marijuana expungements. And so Mark gives him a large stack of files, and he starts at the top and opens them up and says, is this a marijuana offense which is expungible? Because they're not all expungible, or they're only expungible at certain stages. So we've been chewing through those probably not as fast as anyone wants to do it, but that's what expungement is. Now, we have funds from the state, from the marijuana taxes, that we can access, and we're accessing those funds. I mean, one of the problems is you know, this is not like you can call CNS and get temporary help. And they have to be trained on the court systems to do this. We have to have a place to put them. We have to, be able to monitor and supervise them. But we've got approval to use overtime money, so we have several people that are working overtime just to keep us going on the marijuana side of it. So that piece is there. Then we talked about Monsanto. I now have one of the largest circuits in the state of Missouri in terms of number of cases, and the estimated workload said we should have 13 more clerks in addition to the ones that I've gotten already. I don't know where we would put them, realizing that every clerk takes a desk, a phone, and a computer, and we don't have any space. And so, when we can get people hired, which is a challenge, I mean, as you're well aware, the state pumped all the salaries, and that has helped a little bit. And so we have some people that are on there, and we've got approval for overtime money. And as we can get people who can do the work with the Monsanto work, we got people who are working remotely. We got people who are working on, on the weekends, and that's how we're handling those things, and those are all with state funds. So this particular thing, its original origins were with microfilming. So in the old days, you had a file, you closed it, you sent it to storage, someone in storage took it, opened it up, microfilmed it, and then we could, move forward from there. So with electronics, what that looks like is we scan it in there, then someone verifies it, and that's, the microfilm people would look at, the picture that they had it, make sure it was clear and in focus. So someone here then looks at the file and they say, okay, did this scan correctly? Because all of you know, it's just like a copier. Sometimes it pulls 2 sheets through, sometimes it pulls crooked, sometimes it goes in there upside down and you have, 5 blank pages. And that's what's going on with this position now. So that's what the microfilming has kind of morphed to. It's a verification. But the good news is once we get them verified, after 1 year, okay, then the papers can be shredded. And so there's no more permanent storage of the paper. So that's what you're doing with that position. Where it helps us is that we can use retired state workers without messing around with their retirement. part-time with OSCA is very difficult because they don't like it. It messes with their budget, they can't predict it, and some things like that. And this allows us to go use resources like retired state people to come in to work, so many hours. And that makes us very flexible and able to get that work done. And Mark is aware, and we talk all the time, is that, nobody can go over 29, so we're not creating any sort of benefit position.
Oh, okay, they're not benefited, and
Right.
there's a 1,000-hour-a-year limit as well. I mean,
On the-
29 hours, yeah.
The state one that I have is one that left during the transition and has come back. She's very knowledgeable of the system, and she can only work 19 hours a week, so it don't mess with her retirement benefits. And the other two, one's brand new and one worked here in the past, so she's familiar with it. And those are the two that I'm paying out of the county part-time. So, and that'll change, because like I said, I just hired them 3 weeks ago, so now you're gonna start seeing these numbers change a little bit.
But that's what we're doing with that line item.
Do you see a completion date somewhere in the future on that? I mean,
Actually, Harry, I'm not sure with Monsanto, with redaction, and with marijuana, we are swamped, on top of everything else we have coming. But the boxes are starting to dwindle down, so I'm hoping within a year and a half, we can say, hey, we're finally caught up.
Are those boxes up on the 4th floor, or where are they? Are they out?
They're most of them are in the old jail in the 3rd floor, and if I can get a Saturday to get in here, they're gonna get out of here. So we're gonna start cleaning that old jail up. Before my term, before I came in, that place was ransacked and everything got through in there. So I don't even know what's in there, but that's where a lot of the boxes are right now.
There's still a lot collecting in the attic too, for some reason.
We shouldn't be putting anything at all in the attic.
Maybe just some old stuff up there, because when I go up there and look on how the clock, checking on the
Right,
clock.
right. And I don't know what's up there,
Well, there are
but-
some boxes that say ready to shred. And
Okay. And if that's new to me, but I would be happy to go look at that for you.
We might do that, because there are still a bunch up there. I don't know if that's clerk or if that's some of it's
Yeah, and-
our stuff too, but.
I don't know, but I would be happy to look at that for you.
I'm just curious if it ever goes away, because you're always gonna have a file that closes, and then you gotta scan it in and still add it to the
Well,
old
right
file
now, the
stuff, so.
scanning happens in the beginning. Okay? I mean, in the old days, you did all your work, you did all this, and then you opened up the file and you scanned it. So the scanning goes on in the beginning in
Okay.
this time, and what verification does is, it's essentially what you were doing in microfilming, you make sure that it was in the picture straight before you hit the picture button.
Gotcha.
And so you're doing it at kind of a different point in the proposal, but then instead of holding the paper forever, it's 1 year, and then we can get to that. So it's sort of reordered the order of events, but it's-
Gotcha.
at the end of the day, something has to get scanned or taken a picture of, and then someone has to look at it and make sure you can read it.
When they do the docket entry, the clerks automatically scan them in right there. So it's just a one-page, it's a motion, just keep going forward.
Yeah, we went through this with Donnell the last couple of years.
We've been going through
Supposedly,
it for
this job was gonna go
15
away,
years.
you know.
And I'm hoping
Yeah,
it
we used
does.
to have
Yeah.
a lot more boxes up
Yeah,
there, so it
and
has
supposedly it was gonna go
made a
away.
difference.
Well, I can tell you in room 311 right now, there's 10 full paper boxes that need to be verified. And that's setting back for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. The stuff we do every day now, they verify as we go. So these two retired people that are doing your part-time money, they're doing all the old stuff, trying to get everything scanned and microfilmed in. But it goes back 5-6 years, I can tell you that. So.
Now, I know they're doing it because periodically they'll bring me something and say, you forgot to sign this. So I know that they're going through and looking at those things. So that's that position in Circuit Clerk 151. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
The
Mark.
next county paid positions we'll talk about are in 154, that's pretrial. You do that? Okay. Okay. I have, really working on two things here, is, we need to stay what I would call parity, competitive with what comparable positions are paying with the state. Otherwise, you know, when we go to hire people, we can't attract people there. And so consistent with what we did last year and we talked about with the marshals is, you know, we keep track of parity and we keep trying to move closer to parity. In the pretrial release program, we had gotten, that had been something that you guys had negotiated with Richard Lee. It became a long way from when I came over here with Richard Lee and asked the commission for $30,000 to do some bond assessments. Because Judge Joyce and I thought that would help us do a better job at doing bonds, and it's sort of become its own program of all sides there. A couple of things have happened, one of which is, as we hired the new people, the original concept to use pretrial people as marshals, that they were going to be post-certified, that they'd be qualified to have firearms, we could use them for backup bailiffs in the courtroom. Well, that didn't really come to fruition in that manner. And so it was determined that their job functions did not qualify them as law enforcement for loggers. And so the people that came over here were looking at, once they were vested, they were entitled to retire at 55, but you can't do that if you're not law enforcement. And so that's one of the things that we learned through that entire pay process. And so last year I started trying to get this back into looking closer to probation and parole, which I think is the closest state comparator that we have to do that. I also, you know, so you've got the current column, that's what we're currently paying these people. I have a parity column, which is what I think they would be making with the state in their current positions. We're proposing that we increase from current to the proposed level. Now, I think you were provided with a copy of pretrial's analysis and why they thought that, and what they thought those levels should go to. These are the levels that Judge Walker and I are prepared to support with our goal towards as close as we, you know, moving closer to parity with the state, but not, you know, recognizing that we're one small cog in the wheel of county government. The raw dollar changes are more significant for Matt and Stacy because they're the people whose deal changed. They came in here with a deal that they should have been able to collect a retirement from SURF and loggers at 55, certainly from loggers at 55, and now they can't do it because they've been reclassified. And that's an economic, you know, consequence to them. Now, the thing is we're not asking really to change the budget line, because even with these changes, we're where we were last year. And that's a function of that Richard Lee and Butch had gotten to be pretty high levels in terms of salary that you guys had worked out with them. And so from a dollars and cents point of view, we're about where we were budget-wise last year. And so we're not asking to increase that budget, but we'd like to increase those salary lines.
The only thing I would add, a couple of things. One is Matt, who is now the director, if you will, of the program, sends his regrets. Tuesday is their big interview day. They're sitting either at the jail or on video with the jail, doing all their interviews, do their pretrial assessments. And, you know, Judge Beadham talked about when the program started and what the budget was and what have you. And I want to make it clear that Cole County was and remains ahead of the curve on pretrial programs. We have a professional staff. We engage them in training. They help us make informed bond decisions still, which was the original goal. It helps us promote, maximize pretrial release and court appearances. We talked the other day at the meeting that our appearance rate on those who are on pretrial release is above 95%. So that's effective, which encourages the cases to move along, court appearances, but also public safety. And their reports help us ensure that release options are realistic, enforceable, and measurable. And enforcement means the judge's action. And you remember we've started a new program in the last couple of years that is a computer program, if you will, to help us track that. That's helped the judges also react more quickly when necessary. So the other way we were ahead of the curve is that in 2019, the Supreme Court rules changed, putting more requirements on the judges to assess bonds frequently. That is literally every 48 hours after someone comes in into custody. So our pretrial program remains ahead of the curve in that regard. And now, by rule, it's invaluable. It's almost necessary to have it with a circuit our size. So that's really the only thing. And I'm lockstep with Judge Beadham on the numbers. And the only other thing that the adjustment for Stacy and Matt is that the last couple of years in that department, they got basically cost of living. So.
The couple of things, one of which is, one of the benefits of the computer program is it automatically prepares the bill for electronic monitoring, and we have seen an increase in collections on electronic monitoring. And
That's the program. I would give a little credit to the leadership change in that regard as well. I'll just say it that way.
so
The
that's,
attention to that detail is.
so, that was sort of an unexpected benefit that we got with looking at that. We do have.
See that on the first
Yeah.
page, printed out.
Shows
for
up, yeah.
revenues, yeah. they're going up.
So we've got that part of it. Like I said, yet another rare occasion where court revenues have increased. But the other thing is, we have a part-time employee. We have spent, all of our resources really have been focused on getting our new people trained up and operational. You remember that we lost 2 long-term employees at the end of March. And we're about there. We had put some money in there to both continue Mary Ann as a part-time employee and then have a part-time position with a total budget of $36,000. Pre-trial, I wanted to make that into 1 FTE, and I've explained more than once, I said, that's not the deal. You can have 2 half-time people, but you can't have 1 FTE because of the,
Benefits.
because of benefits. And so, but we just have been too busy.
Yeah, and if you recall, a year ago, the way we proposed that was a part-time position for pretrial and a part-time position to help out with treatment court. Treatment court has never hired that position. We've so far gotten away with Katie Dolan being an amazing administrator and her using interns for some of that help. We get college credit and great letters of recommendation, and we don't pay them.
So we've tried to, be as efficient and, frugal as we can with the county resources that are there. So that's what we're asking for in pretrial. And that's what the court is supporting in terms of that. Like I said, sir.
Judge, before our meeting last week, there was a handout that it talked about sort of the savings the sheriff's department might realize because of pretrial. Did I see that somewhere where, it might have been a little bit out there in terms of it took this many inmates out of the jail this many days and it costs so much a day to.
No, that was, I thought that.
Was that was part of the pretrial, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretrial prepared that.
Okay.
And,
It was like $2.5 million or something?
yeah, it's when you look at it, we have, because what pretrial does is a couple different things. The first thing is, let's just assess people who don't really need to be in jail, okay? Or with a modicum of supervision and oversight can be safely out of jail. Then the next group of people who are with some significant oversight, and that would be GPS, SoberLink, those sort of things like that. What pretrial is then allows us to have that program. You have to have someone who answers the phone. When they go out of the zone, with the GPS, or if they blow, alcohol, someone has to answer the phone when the monitoring service calls, hey, somebody violated the rules, and then that has to be responded to. So, every weekend that I'm on call, and I'm sure Judge Walker's experience is the same, I'll get, an email from pretrial that says, so-and-so violated, or so-and-so, got arrested again, and so we can quickly move to revoke their bond and reassess the situation, and that's been invaluable there. The last thing is when someone wants to go out, we'd like to have them have some sort of home plan, because we know that people who have places to go and jobs to work are less a problem to society than people who don't have those two things to rely upon. And so I get a report back that, everybody's got a job. One of my favorite questions, they say, well, it's sentencing time, well, Your Honor, I have a job. And I said, where's your job? It's so-and-so, and how long you been there? I start tomorrow. So what pretrial allows us to do is verify both the home plans and the employment, and it lets us make better decisions. But everybody we don't have in the jail is an open bed, either for the next bad guy that comes in, or allows us to, space to support federal prisoners, which are a revenue source. But
Well, right now, it allows somebody to stay in Cole and rather than Montauk, and we have to pay Montauk.
that is true. And so, we work all the time on everybody to say, you need to relook at these people. Do we really need these people in jail? And that's, I got 5 judges, 4 judges beside myself. Everybody has a little different view of how this works. But we constantly asking people to go through, look at your jail roster. Who do you have in jail? The other thing to remember is that from circuit to associate circuit's Judge Stumpy, Judge Limbaugh. They touch every criminal case that comes in the building, and then they handle all every felony case that comes in the building, and then they handle all the misdemeanors. In their business, appearance is absolutely everything, because they can't do anything without the defendant there. In circuit court, I need the defendant there for arraignment. I need them to keep in touch with their lawyer. I need them there for the pretrial, and I need them there for the trial. But most of the work that does in circuit with the discovery and the depositions and the pretrial work which is there, I don't need the defendant in court. Downstairs, they got to have the defendant in court. And so it's a much bigger deal with them to keep people in until we get them circuit court. So that's what we're doing in pretrial. Other questions that I could answer?
I think maybe earlier you said something about being surprised. When we were here a year ago, we were kind of guessing at a COLA, a
Right.
cost of living number, and the governor surprised everybody with the 8
Well,
Five or-
last year, what I was trying to do last year was get us back to a comparator with probation and parole, which had kind of been abandoned. So we had people in pretrial that were making a lot more money than probation and parole officers were making. And you guys did this with pretrial for the 5 years prior of that. And so that's why when I had everybody that was way above my comparators, that's why I asked for cost of living, because at the same time we were dealing with what we'll talk about in a second with law enforcement. And then literally, after we had done all that work, then the state comes in there and cranks everybody's salary. And then we were then behind the ball again. So, from a strategy point of view is we try to figure out what we think our comparators are, what I call parity, and we try to move our people towards parity. And that's yes, but it was unexpected that the state would do what the state did. So,
Okay.
the next area that we have significant county-paid employees is court security. That's the marshals. And so if you recall, we came in last year and, we talked about the fact that, we were behind what I call parity. Traditionally, and for the 30 years I've been involved in the court system here, we've generally run the marshals comparable with, sergeants and lieutenants at the sheriff's department level. Now, as you are painfully aware, the law enforcement market has just gone, I wouldn't say that it's gone crazy, but it certainly has gone up. And, whereas 3 years ago, we were hiring deputies at $36,000 a year, that won't touch it. And so when we came in last year, I said, here's where we were in terms of parity with where the sheriff's department was in August of 2022, and I asked everybody to move us in that direction. Then here we are in 2023, and the numbers have gotten moved again. So it's kind of like they keep moving the goalposts. So what I've set forth to you on that page is what we're currently paying everybody there. What comparable parity, I've compared that with sergeants and lieutenants at the sheriff's department, and then what we're proposing to increase it to. And that number. Things that to talk about there is that, we hire people with substantial law enforcement experience, although I can tell you the last pool of applicants were not near as well qualified as we are accustomed to seeing. We filled 2 positions last year. And we're very pleased with the people that we hired, but the pool of applicants was not near as well qualified for that. We recognize that there are differences there. Our people don't work weekends. We work evenings during the jury trials because we have to have at least 2 marshals in the building for a jury trial, which are there. But the job, and you really can't just compare it with a line deputy. We've actually tried that, and that did not work out well. But what they're doing in a courtroom requires substantial experience, and so that's why we chose that number, and this is what we're asking us to move us towards parity. Recognizing fully that as soon as I get this done, sheriff's office will probably be in here telling you, hey, look, we can't hire anybody at this number, we need to raise all those numbers. But that would keep us moving towards parity. Up until the last 3 years, we'd always been at parity with the sheriff's department. So that's why we're asking that. We are asking for, what are we seeing? Our criminal case filings are up. I think I've talked to you about that before. As long as I've been here, but for the last year or 2, we've been at 650, 700 felonies. We're at, I think I looked yesterday, at 950. We've been as high as 1050. So there's a lot more of that. We're finally getting jury trials going, and I know that because we're now running into either Judge Green can have a trial or Judge Beadham can have a trial, but we both can't have a trial. So that had never happened to us in a long time. We're now starting to see those conflicts. That's a resource conflict. Every trial we have involves overtime. We don't have a good way, we don't pay overtime, and so we have to take it in comp time. And so those are challenges that we have there, but the volume, the dockets are just crazy. We reoriented some dockets. I shifted just some juvenile work to Judge Stumpy because we were staying to 6 p.m. like 3 nights a week because of the volume of the cases there. The last thing in terms of that is we'd like to raise our part-time. Our part-time is like about $21,600, and we'd like to go to $25 an hour because we think that reflects the market on part-time. But we have very limited people that we can bring in. It's just not like I can call somebody off the street to come in and do this work. There's a lot more to being a marshal in a courtroom than standing there. So I'd like to answer any questions that you've got.
I don't think I have any more questions, so.
Nor do I.
Makes me excited for budget time, though.
Well, I want to get my part done because, like I said, I'm sure that the challenges in law enforcement generally are going to continue. And like I said, what I told you guys last year was we would work with the commission. I just need to keep my people moving, towards parity to do that.
Mark, we have a upcoming date here with respect to this part of our budget, which
It's
is.
basically today.
It is today?
Yeah.
Okay, it is today?
Yeah. Now, by law, if any significant changes to be made to their budget request, it could potentially have to go through that judicial.
Circuit Court.
Yeah.
No, it's
Oh, the other
the
one.
Judicial Finance Board,
Yeah.
Review Board.
Is it today? I mean, it's a funny
15
deal.
days.
We have to have this in front of the county so we can have this discussion.
There's no decision, no nothing today, we don't have to do anything. They just had to do it today in order to meet the requirements of the statute.
Well, but at some point, it can't be changed. Is that tomorrow it can't be changed, or
Well,
is it?
basically today, but you can agree to change it,
I
right?
can agree to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
We can't just, commission can't just say, we're gonna change our budget, no questions asked. You have to be on absolute agreement between from now till the end of the budget time. The court
Well-
and the commission has to be in agreement with any changes to these numbers. So-
Okay, so the statute says we got to do it, but is it a date certain, or, like, is it August the 31st, or is it?
15 days before the deadline for all other departments to
Submit their
present their
budget.
budget to me, which is September 1st, so yeah. We may have another day or so.
Yeah,
maybe
so it's tomorrow, I
31
guess.
days in.
It's 15 days before the, September 1.
Yeah, so I
Is
guess
that
we've
right?
got tomorrow
Okay.
as well.
But the main difference is if we don't agree on changes, then it would go through the
Judicial
judicial
Finance.
financial board, so there is opportunity for it to change, but.
yeah. And we've worked through this, and like I said, we have a responsibility to bring forth something that is reasonable, and, if the county had just suffered some sort of economic tragedy, I think that's all allowed, and there are ways to work through that. But,
We needed to do this because of the statute.
statute
but
requires us to have this meeting.
We can still
Yeah, okay.
negotiate.
I think that
still
there's
negotiable.
you know-
Is that correct?
Right, but you've got some, there's a clock on the commission if they want to challenge it. But like I said, that's why we went through and
As far as I'm concerned, I think you've got, like I said, before salaries, hardly anything's changed from last year, so I'm good with that. As far as salaries, so
Yeah, I
you
mean,
ended up
we're-
asking for the same in total for pretrial
for
as last year.
pretrial, we're not actually to change anything. I mean, the dollar total, it doesn't change. And what I have here is if you remember last year we came here and we were way off in terms of where we were, in terms of what we were paying and what market was for comparable experience. And like I said, last year I asked you to move it in that direction. And then this year I was gonna ask you to move it more in that direction. And then they moved the goalpost on us in terms of what the comparators were. So that's why,
As far as the benefits go, we don't have hard numbers on any of them.
Yeah, the numbers you put in for benefits, that's.
It's all
That's
dependent.
all
That'll
young.
change.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
guys do
yeah,
that
well,
because I don't have any control. of
It's all
that.
dependent upon the.
Right. So, and but it's understood the budget, we were talking about the payroll part of it, and then you guys fixed the rest of it.
As far as the repairs to the courtroom, I mean, we're having troubles finding people to do some other small jobs that we've got. The health
I hear about that
department
at
in
home all the
particular,
time.
So,
Hard to find good help.
all right, so, but I don't know. We almost have to have somebody hired just to do that stuff, and I don't know, Jessica, if there's some kind of
I made 5.
maintenance people we could get that do some of this stuff.
I can print you another one out.
Because there's a lot of small projects that we have sitting out there right now waiting to be done.
We don't have to do doing that, maybe do a year contract with a certain contractor or something.
Yeah, the state does that. I've seen the state do that, where it's kind of what I would call a handyman contract, that, what will you bid us on small projects?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a small staff. Our guys just, when it's grass cutting time, they're busy doing a lot of that stuff. They do have some downtime that we could work on stuff, but that that doesn't work with scheduling around jury trials.
Yeah, 'cause we need a little bit of lead time to,
And then, there are pretrial release programs out there, I guess, that do it privately. Can we maybe see how they get paid? I mean, they get paid to do it. Who pays their bills? I'm just trying to figure out another
Some of them violate,
stream of.
some of them violate Supreme Court rule because they charge the defendants.
I just-
Not all of them, but some of them do.
I mean, it's the same story as every year. I always ask how we
well,
can
there's
increase
private-
revenue, and you did this
there-
year, so.
There's private probation services that are out there that are out there, so when you put somebody on probation, particularly on misdemeanor probation, there are those private probation services which are out there. In terms of pretrial, I don't know that I'm familiar with a private pretrial service. They tell me in Greene County, the commission does it all, so, and I have no idea what that means.
There you go, Sam.
But, you know, you guys could meet every
Give him the
morning.
cell phone.
You could meet every morning, decide who gets in and out of
Let
jail.
me go back and check my notes and see what and who it was, and because that way we got something more specific we can look
Yeah.
into. And I know a lot of people on the pre-trial release program are in trouble and don't necessarily have the funds, but some of them just made a mistake and have the opportunity to stay out of jail, keep a job, be with their family and stuff, so.
And most of those people probably don't need pretrial. You know, and Judge Walker could probably talk for hours and hours about low-risk, low-needs people. But, you know, we try not to put people in such circumstances where they're going to fail just because of the
Right.
circumstance that they're put in there. So when you,
Yeah, it's been a great program. I'm just trying to look at ways, because the cost keeps growing, but we haven't.
well, but our crime has kept growing. So the opportunities we have to review people for pretrial release have increased. You know, we're down a little bit from the peak of last year.
On the supervision numbers.
But we went from 200 people on pretrial to down to what, 230 now? Something like that?
260 was the first half of the year, 274 was last year,
Okay.
260 was the first half.
And we didn't add any payroll. We didn't add another officer. You know, and theoretically, we're at the max in terms of the number of officers. Now, we've done that by looking really hard at who gets out and what level of supervision that they need. But we are, you know, we didn't add, and I think we talked about this last year. You know, we said, we've got the workload to justify another FTE. But we really want to see what this computer program does for us. We wanted to see what new management does for us. And,
The workload is not just about the supervision, it's about that report at the beginning to comply with the rules, so that they can be released if it's appropriate without supervision. Or if there's higher supervision need, that's identified as well.
so. But you know, there are some people there that, you know, and that's why we've been, you know, working on the electronic monitor and those sorts of things like that. Which is, I think is a very defendable position. What we want to try to avoid is where we're back in the boat of whether or not you get out of jail is a function of can you afford it? And that's where I think we run afoul of the Constitution on those rules.
Yeah.
But I always want to look at, you know, I want to steal every good idea that there is out there.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, somebody else has a good idea, nothing wrong with borrowing it, so.
But, well, I think
We'll
we're-
send them a thank you card.
So is Greene
Same
County
damn
really
thing.
doing something? I mean,
I
I
don't-
can
I don't-
check with
that-
Presiding
I-
Commissioner Dixon, but
The, Greene County was doing something different when we first got into this. I don't know what they're doing now, but, at one time, it sounded like they were letting the commission make the bond decision instead of the judges, and, I don't see how that works.
no.
You know, from a judge point of view, it's very comforting to know that someone has looked, they really do have a job, they really do have a place to go. If someone violates electronic monitor, someone calls, so we can get it done. I mean, you can't spank the dog 3 days after they wet on the carpet. And so we try to, if we get somebody who gets rearrested, we try to get them they might be rearrested for an offense that they would bond out on or would be released on. But if we know about it, it's a violation of the conditions of release, we may revoke the bond and come back and say, let's take a look at this again, because if you're on pretrial release, one of the first things you're not supposed to be doing is violating the law again. And we found that to be relatively influential with people. But that's, we can do that because we have pretrial release people. The last thing, and Holly had asked me about that, is we pay a cell phone stipend, and there are some concerns about what that opens up. And their the marshal's request that we just don't call it that. You can just add it in there, just put it in salary. I mean, that's the logical effect of the way you're doing it now. You just have a line item that says that.
It's taxable
Yeah.
compensation to them, of course. Yeah.
So it shouldn't make any difference. If it's taxable, then don't you pay employment taxes on it too, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And their retirement will go up this much, right?
Be the same.
yeah, so
Well-
we just assume.
Clothing allowance, just,
Yeah. I think that's a good topic for
Yeah.
countywide discussion, cell phone stipends. How we handle
Won't solve the problem you're thinking of, but
Well,
I know some judges rule differently. All right, any other questions that we could answer? And like I said, we're always available. You know, come over there and say, this makes no sense to me. And we will do our best to explain.
Okay.
We do always support, you know, we do always appreciate the support of the commission. You know, there are so many counties that don't support their court system as well, and it shows in terms of the product that they do. So, you know, we get, other than it's an old building, it doesn't have enough bathrooms, and we have to sit on the floor during jury selection, you know, we think we get pretty positive reviews.
What I told Judge Joyce when I came in, porta potties are always an option. She came over really quick, porta potties?
And yet you still got reelected. Porta potties has been your answer to a lot of things, hasn't it?
And trailers. Get the
And
trailers
trailers.
from the school.
Well,
I'm not sure how Greene County sources all of their budget for pretrial, but in their press release for 2023, they budgeted $317,000 just for ankle monitoring services, bus passes, and interpreter services within the county budget. That's not counting their salaries, which may be funded a different way, but
I mean, to consider the number of people we monitor on pretrial, I mean, from a caseload point of view, we're probably where it would justify, and we went from 200 to about 250 without an increase in staff.
we're not asking.
Yeah, and we're, you
The
know,
program is helping us with that. It really is. We're starting to see the dividends of that in a real way.
which is what we said last year, is we weren't gonna ask for an increase in staff until we got the full effect of what the programming would do, because we thought it would save us some of that. We worked with the intern program, and we've tried really hard, you know, to be responsible with the money that the county gives us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, judges.
Okay.
Okay. Any commission comments? Bids and contracts, bid award of 2023-19 auditing services.
We bid out the auditing services for the auditor's office. There was only one vendor who submitted a response, which was Williams Keepers, in the amount of $63,500. Mark's been pleased with their previous audit, and our recommendation is to award it to Williams Keepers.
Do you have the contract?
No.
Or just do the award today, so,
Just award today.
okay.
What was it for the prior? Was it
It's like
50, 55?
57.5, so
Okay.
the cost, it's going up
A little bit.
a fair
And-
amount next year, but then over the next 5 years, it's a smaller.
Increase.
smaller
And this is a
increase.
5-year deal?
5 years.
Till 27.
I'm totally happy with it.
Okay, you all good?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to award the auditing services to Williams Keepers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I think the next, that's Eric Hoy, so we'll move him down. Renewal 1 of 2022-25 inmate food service.
All right, this is the first renewal for the inmate food services with Trinity for the Sheriff's Department. They did have an increase in their prices. The estimated increase is $33,147.84 annually. The Sheriff's Department is okay with the increases, and they've been pleased with their services, so our recommendation is to renew it for another year.
I'll make a motion to award
Renew.
renew the inmate food services with Trinity Services Group.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unfinished business, I think Eric has something, we'll come back on that too. New business, accounts payable review.
I will ask for accounts payable pending review.
Motion to approve accounts payable pending review.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion of tax levy for 2023.
I usually put this on the agenda the week before the hearing, and next week is.
Hearing will be-
Yeah, be next week. It has been advertised in the paper of the levy. Just here to answer any questions or anything you might have about that. I did get the pro formas back from the state auditor's office through the county clerk, and they were right on what we were talking about.
We've got quite a unique, I think, complicated calculation to do, and it's due to the way we fund EMS.
Yes.
When the citizens said, let's have an EMS service for the county, let's pay for it with a half-cent sales tax, but for every dollar collected in sales tax, we're going to basically refund back 60 cents of that to the citizens of Cole. And we'll do that by adjusting the levy. So we do that levy calculation every year, and we'll do it again, and it gets the operating levy down to very small number, right?
Yes.
It takes it from 0.35 to 0.04 or something like that, is it? 0.04, okay.
Yes,
So-
it does. We had days where we were at the levy, at the top of the levy at 34 cents, and now we're down to, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, 0.04.
Right.
86 is what I'm proposing.
And-
Because of the rollback.
And as soon as that sales tax number hits somewhere north of 9 million, it's in 8.23 million now, 4. Once it hits over 9, we'll take that levy to 0, I think.
Yes. I have asked the state auditor's office that particular question, and all they said was that was a good question.
And just to be plain, it's the operating levy. It's not the public works levy.
We don't touch that.
We don't touch that one. Mark, you have a comment there?
Well, I will throw in, with my experience at the state auditor's office for 36 years, this is actually a very common occurrence in counties. Most counties I saw, when they passed a general sales tax operating levy, it required a 50% rollback. That was the most common sales tax being passed years ago by counties. So what I was seeing in other counties is that once they have to if they get to 0 on general, they start rolling back road and bridge. But if you're rolling back road and bridge, you take money from that sales tax that you're getting in.
And send
you
it
put
to
it in road. So road and bridge is not out any money. You
Right.
just you're replacing property tax with that sales tax is
Right.
basically what you're doing.
But in that,
And
ballot
many,
language-
and I saw that in several counties over the years. That's how they handled the required rollback of their property tax levy.
What happens when Road and Bridge gets to zero?
Then I'd say there's nothing else nothing else the county government has any control over as far as their property taxes. We only have those two levies to set, the county.
The ballot language itself said the general fund levy will be looked at, but I'll have to.
Oh, okay. Well,
It
that
It
might
doesn't
be
say we
open
can't
for-
roll the others back though,
No,
so.
We can always do that anytime. We can always do voluntary rollbacks, right, can't we?
but
Right.
once you do it, you can't go back, obviously.
Eric's gonna faint here in a second.
Yeah. Once you do that, you can't go back.
Anyway, that's just what I saw over the years. Like I said, this is a very common occurrence.
All right.
I didn't realize we were getting that close to zero on it, so. And it is an interesting formula that I have asked Debbie about, and she makes that look like Beetlejuice when she starts explaining it to me, so I'm glad you understand it more.
I have to re-educate myself on it every year because it's complicated.
It is. All right.
So I'll bring it back up, public hearing next week, and if you guys have any questions in between now and then, I emailed you my recommendations for tax levy for 23.
Right. I wanted to make that point in that the rollback has nothing to do with a required rollback because the assessed values have skyrocketed.
Absolutely not. The average is at 2.4, it looks like. The assessed valuation totals for 23 versus 22.
2.4?
2.4.
Gee, I thought that newspaper article said 6 to 7%.
Not the overall.
I thought I heard it was more than that too.
Well, this is certified by the clerk after BOE. Okay.
Okay. We'll do signing of surplus title,
Okay. This is,
and then we will
sorry,
go back to old business.
this is a 2019 Dodge Charger that was totaled by the insurance company, so. Sheriff's Department.
Whoever you.
Make a motion to sign the surplus title on the, what do we want here, right? A 219 Dodge sedan for the sheriff's office. Is that right?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We will go back up to the agenda, signing of representation letter for FY 2021 GEMT cost report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is the representation letter for the audit of our 2021 GEMT submission. Through the audit, it was found that we were due back approximately $19,000. So the way this works is we turn in our interim cost analysis. They issue an interim payment off of that. Then Missouri Health Net hires an outside auditor to conduct an audit. They've completed that, determined that we are actually owed more funds. So this is just a representation letter saying that we provided Myers and Stoffers, the auditor, the materials that they need, and we have no more further questions about the audit process. Once we sign this and turn this in, they will issue the final audit, and then we'll go through the process of, again, sending some federal money to get back what we're owed in the GEMT reimbursement. So all in all, about $20,000 coming back to us that we previously did not have. So just ask that we sign the representation letter today.
You got the letter? Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Make a motion, we sign the letter of representation with Myers and Stouffer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll go back to unfinished business and
Yes. So
radio.
last week, you all approved the addition of the automated voice dispatch system. As I walked out of the room, the communications chief kicked me and said, we actually needed 2 radios, you only approved 1. So I'm here to use the John Wheeler method of negotiation by saying, oh, I forgot. So in order to complete the project, we need a second Motorola Consulate radio of $8,048.42. The rest of the project's coming out of opioid money. However, since this is an unexpected overage, I'm more than happy to take it out of contingency or whatever you guys feel is appropriate.
So do we need to take it out of the same place the others came out of, or do we need contingency, or where you got any suggestions, Debbie, or?
Well, I'm not sure where we're at, but we may have to do a transfer. But I think we're waiting on even doing a purchase order, now that we knew there was 2 of them. So we're gonna take it out of 650, which is the capital part, which you may see a transfer.
So it'll come out of capital, but is it opioid money then?
Oh, is that one?
Yeah, this is part of the opioid project.
Sorry, it is gonna come out of the opioid line item. Yes. Is there money in there? Yes. 'Cause
Yeah, I
we
knew we
received-
had some other ideas coming down the pipe too for the opioid money,
Yeah,
so I wanted to make sure we
juvenile
weren't,
centers asking for some too.
I gave you an initial estimate for this project in the $50,000 range. A large portion of that built in was some networking stuff. We don't know how much that networking is going to be, other than it was a do not exceed for $12,000. So there is a significant chance where if that networking comes out to only $10,000 or only $2,000 or $4,000, that we could easily pay for this in the already proposed project price. I guess my proposal would be is we go ahead and use the opioid funds to pay for the radio now, and if for some reason the project exceeds what's already been kind of set aside in the opioid fund, we can balance that out with capital contingency.
I think we've made him beg enough, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, if you end up taking some of Toby's money, I mean, then we have the Duke out. And I bet she could take you.
She
for a
probably
fight.
would. That's not a fight I want to pick.
I'll make a motion, we go ahead and purchase the radio that was missed a week ago.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, John. I didn't call you Matt. Okay, we're gonna, on the vehicle policy, we're gonna put that to the end. So we will go to signing of live scan indemnity maintenance agreement with the sheriff's department.
He just stepped up to take a phone call. too.
Oh, okay, and we will go to approval and signing of change order number 1, railroad spur extension and transload facility.
He probably got a call from Sheriff Wheeler telling him
Shoot me.
Tase me. To ticket his car out there in the front lot, tow it.
So this is a change order for the railroad spur extension transload facility. The first part of it is track 750 is located behind Morris Packaging and was requested to extend the existing track 250 feet to accommodate more rail cars. This additional track was approved by Union Pacific after the project was bid and awarded. The second portion of it is that the existing sewer line runs under the reinforced concrete box culvert, and the City of Jefferson Sewer Department requested the sewer line be relocated in this area. And then the third portion of this is the electric isolation. It's a safety item for the last 600 feet of track on tracks A, B, and C at the transload facility. And this will provide grounding while loading and unloading flammable commodities. Overall, this change order is an increase of $178,308.90.
Some of the update to the project might play into this a little bit, so we might have a conversation on those particular items and then vote on the change order, and then get back to an update on the project. So the track 750 that Matt mentioned, the adding to the existing track another 250 feet to accommodate more rail cars, this was required by Union Pacific. Through the process, we didn't have that approval until after the project was bid and awarded and started. That's just the way the process dragged out. We couldn't wait for that, we knew it was coming, but we had to get the project moving based on the grant conditions and getting money submitted for reimbursement. So we knew something like this was gonna happen, it just came after the fact. Had we gotten the funding from the state, as previously discussed, we would have done away with this and done the larger siding track behind Command Web. That was in the plans to change that with Union Pacific, but we didn't get the funding, and so now we have to build this extra track. It's not gonna go to waste, it can be used for future uses, but we would have bypassed that and done the other. The sewer line, that's just something that came up during construction. There was a conflict, very minimal, but it had to be relocated. And then electrical isolation, that's something that in the early process of the project didn't think it was needed. Rail contractor came back and said, hey, if you do want to put this in, it's going to be a lot cheaper to do it now than to do it later, if you do decide later you want it. So we went ahead and opted to do it now. So that's the reason for that item.
I'm just curious as to, of the 178, the breakdown between 1, 2, and 3. Is there, do you have those numbers?
So, I do, it's actually on the change order. So the additional track, 250 feet of track is $73,541.85. The sewer line relocation is $81,137. And the addition, the electrical isolation is $24,750.
Okay. Okay.
And instead of doing 3 separate change orders,
Yeah,
I just rolled
that's
them all
fine.
into one for you.
Okay, yep.
I make a motion to approve and sign change order number 1, Railroad Spur Extension and Transload Facility in the total amount of, I didn't think, 178,308.90.
Yes, sir.
Second. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do you want to do the capital area rail terminal update now?
Yeah, that's immediately after he kind of rolls into the change
Yeah,
order.
yeah.
So the project is going well. I would say it's at or ahead of schedule. Should be completed possibly by early December. I believe the completion date is the end of December. So things are moving along very well. Really haven't had any real major issues, just kind of a normal construction project that we're used to. Just a different type of work being done and the end result. Right now, I actually had a meeting yesterday, and we have been meeting with the operator, and that's Capital and Waco, that partnership, to develop what we want to do as a memorandum of understanding that will get us to the end of the year, and then work towards a final, or actually a 1-year operator agreement, and then followed up with a longer-term operator agreement. The reason to do an MOU right now is because we're still developing what this is going to be as far as fees, how to attract business, marketing, just a lot of different things that need to be developed ongoing right now. And we want to get something in writing as to who is to do what during the process until we have an agreement in place, which the goal is to have that by the end of the year. So that MOU, I have a draft. I will work with Jill to have that reviewed, and I haven't done a final review on it, but when I'm done looking at it and we think it's in good shape, then we'll have Jill check it over, make sure everything's good on that end. So that's ongoing, and actually I probably will have that ready to bring to the commission next week. That's the goal there. Not so much us as in Public Works, but JC Rep and Capital have been talking to potential customers and starting to develop some possibilities there. So that's ongoing. One in particular could be receiving 3 cars every week. So that's an initial one. And there's just even at the groundbreaking the other day, we had some approach us, actually two I talked to specifically. So definitely there's potential there. Now with that, if you remember a couple weeks ago, a month ago or so, we signed a supplemental agreement with Central Missouri Professional Services to do some construction phase services, but also some design work to do what we're calling the 10% plan as required by Union Pacific for submittals. This would be for that siding work that we had hoped to get the funding for. That would be to expand the siding capacity at Command Web, which would expand the capacity of the overall transload facility. Right now, as it stands, we're going to be able to accept, if my math is correct, a little over 1,400 cars a year. Capital is in the range of 400 initially, maybe up to 600 when they get fully up and going. So, and just based on conversations we're having right now and the interest generated, we think we could get to capacity maybe quicker than planned. And so we need to be prepared for that next phase, which is to expand that siding, and that will probably double or triple the capacity.
Double, yeah.
So that's will be ongoing here soon. And also, with that, if we can have those plans, preliminary plans done, where we could submit them to the UP, or we could do project estimates on, we would be prepared to start applying for grants, as we did on the last phase, and maybe have some things ready ahead of time to see what might come down. So that's where it stands. Last thing, tomorrow on the Campo Board of Directors agenda will be the request to put the $2 million is what this next phase would cost, put that on the unfunded needs list. There was some issue that it didn't get on that. It was on the Campo list, but it didn't make it on the state list the last time, and that was a possible reason why we didn't get the funding, but we're moving on from that, and we'll have it in place for any potential down the road. So.
Okay. I thought the event last Friday went spectacular. It was very well done.
Yeah, we were real happy with the turnout, and I don't know, I think we had about probably 75 people there. Like Eric said, just the media from that. We've had contact with several industries that are interested in using it, and I mean, to me, the best problem we'll have is if we're bumping up against our capacity. So I think it'll be a good problem to have, and a lot of the capacity issues are going to be in kind of a seasonal. Capital's planning on really heavily using that during the winter months to be able to fill up their asphalt tanks that time of year. They're talking they may try to get 10 plus cars a week. So that would basically take, UP currently serves the industrial park 3 days a week. The chances of them increasing number of days is slim to none, just because of the way they operate. So our ability to increase the capacity is going to be through this extra track behind Command Web.
Will this thing always be addressed as Shamrock? Is that the street? The street there?
North Shamrock.
North Shamrock,
Yes,
okay.
it'll always have that address, yes.
Okay. And that entrance will become as spectacular as the facility, right? Right now, it's a little bit of a gravel road. We think we're going to a keg party down there, maybe.
Well,
A new concrete drive approach and some new gravel is in the plans, so
Okay.
it'll be much improved.
if you're coming the other way, you can see it pretty good. But coming from True Path there, yeah, it's a little disguised. So.
Well, when those trucks, load up there and leave because they're taking something off a rail car and now they're leaving there, they can go Shamrock South and go east. Can they go up Shamrock and go west as well? They can't do that,
go
right?
west, they can't go east.
I'm sorry, west. They can go west and not east,
They would
yeah.
have to go back to militia.
Okay.
And over the last couple of years since we've been talking about this, several of the industries out in that area have brought up some concerns about that Shamrock Road at-grade crossing.
Mhm.
Whenever MoDOT redid that, what's it been, 4 or 5 years ago, closing the leg of South Shamrock and basically putting in a de facto J-turn by making folks go out to militia to turn around and come back. That at-grade intersection got left open is basically a three-quarter access because of the highway patrol and the landfill. So there's been a lot of concern from industries out there about that at-grade crossing, and if the cart really gets up and going and we really increase the truck traffic, I could see that being the next unfunded need, would be putting in an interchange at that location.
The highway patrol bit would be on your side for that, right?
That is true.
I think so.
Okay.
One thing I did want to mention, when I talked about the MOU and working on that, this is an agreement between us and Capital, but JC Rep is listed in there, and they're going to be a partner on marketing and other odds and ends for the long haul, I would assume. So they are a significant partner in this from the get-go, and will be as we move forward.
Who came up with the cart name? That's pretty cute. I didn't know that was coming. That yours?
That's mine.
That's good.
We had a few C's and T's floating around there, and then all of a sudden.
Is this the final name change for this?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
This one's gonna stick, all right.
Well, and like Eric said, getting the MOU with Capital really, kind of sets the tone, and the county has selected them, but, this kind of puts that agreement in writing. And, what we're wanting to do over the next several months is really put together a marketing plan, looking at logos and websites and
Right.
marketing materials and things like that, so that we've got the ability to go out and, we got a lot of interest whenever we were putting the grant applications together, had probably 30-plus letters of support from industries throughout the area. So our plan is to, once we have these marketing materials ready, is to go out and start visiting with those industries and make them aware of the project, let them know, how they can use the facility and really try to start to drum up the business. We really want to be able to, shortly after the first of the year, have trains running on this, so.
If your logo includes a horse, be sure you don't put the
Cart before the horse.
Okay.
Bump.
Here, stick your hand here. Okay.
I don't have anything further. Thanks for time, and like I said, it rolls in with a change order to some degree, but everything's moved along in a very orderly and in good fashion, so I think everybody's happy with how the progress is going.
We'll go back to Aaron, and then we'll be ready for your 9:30 Zoom, I guess.
So we have the 9:30 Zoom with OpenGov.
Yeah.
I think they're ready anytime.
Okay, let's do the sheriff.
Okay.
Let's see. Signing of live scan indemnity maintenance agreement with the sheriff's department.
Yes, I'm asking for a signature on the maintenance agreement. It's $34.99. It'll be good until August of next year. So it's for live scan.
We good?
Yeah.
Motion to sign the agreement with Idemnia for the live scan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we will go to open government permitting and licensing software presentation. Zoom in at 9:30. We're just 7 minutes late. I was trying to.
And they're on standby, so did let them know that it could be a little later.
We done with yours, Chief? Got all yours, okay.
Yeah. I think we did.
So OpenGov is a basically just a, what you call it exactly, yeah. OpenGov houses Cartograph, which is our asset management program. They are a permitting and licensing company, basically asset management and government operations type company that provides software to manage these things. We've been talking to them and actually been looking at other companies as well, but probably for the past year or so, been considering an online or cloud-based system to house our permitting, licensing, and inspection related items. OpenGov, like I said, is the parent company of Cartograph. Probably over the past year, they bought Cartograph. They did not have that type of road asset management software within their system, so they bought that to add that. And we'll get going here shortly. Jess O'Shea is our person we're working with, and she'll give a presentation about the product, and then we can talk about it a little bit afterwards. And this is just, today I just wanted to get this in front of you. I've talked to you individually about it over the past few weeks or so. I just wanted to get this in front of you, and then at a later date, possibly next week, we could maybe make some decisions moving forward. But definitely can fill you in on answer any questions you have, and give you some additional information as we go.
Can you hear us? Cannot hear us.
There we go.
Okay, can you hear us here at Cole County?
Jess, we can't hear you.
She muted? No. My voice is back up, right? Turn it back up. No, well, I think it comes.
This is one reason why I didn't want to do Zoom. So
Or
that
it's
she
gonna scare
knew.
the crap out of us. You have to have Brian in your house.
Well, but I mean, it's just, at least they would have done it, but.
Usually I don't do Zoom, so I don't.
Go into the speaker thing and set up your, the audio. It might be on the wrong speaker or something.
Oh, she's a talking away. Sorry.
See if it needs, there's your select speaker, see if it,
Take a break.
there you go. Hey, we might have it.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear
There we
me?
go, we're good. Yes, we're good.
Turn that TV.
Great. Wonderful. I was getting a little worried there for a second.
Okay, Jess, hey, we got the county commission here, and we're ready to go whenever you're ready.
Fantastic. I'm ready to go. I just wanted to make sure that y'all could hear me.
Yep.
Good morning, Eric, staff members, and Cole County commissioners.
Good morning.
Really grateful to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And I wanted to officially introduce myself. So my name is Jess O'Shea. I'm the county executive here at Open, supporting similar sized counties and cities across the state on our permitting and licensing suite. And also, I brought on the line Gerard Franklin, who's actually a great technical resource. And in case there's any questions at the end, he's here to support. So Gerard, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Gerard Franklin. As Jess mentioned, I'm a solutions engineer here with OpenGov. I'm here really to support you all with any technical questions or concerns that you all may have in making sure that we all kind of walk away from today's conversation with any questions answered. Before joining OpenGov, I actually worked as a customer with OpenGov and actually deployed the software that you all will be discussing today. So again, very familiar with the deployment, implementation, as well as the software overall. So again, I'll just pass it back over to Jess, and I'm here for any technical support.
Thank you, John. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the presentation because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So, why are we here today? Why is the county looking to make a change? So, currently, the county is operating mostly through paper-based processes when it comes to collecting any type of permits or license. Staff has heavy manual data entry and manual processes leading to inefficient operations and longer project approval times. Right now, there's no transparency for applicants, so if they want to know maybe the status of their application or their permit, they would right now have to either lock in, they would have to call or email the county staff. And then from what we've seen, not just at the county, but also across the entire country, is that the community expectations are rising and the county is struggling to provide a high level of customer service and meet those expectations. Why OpenGov? So we actually have 500 permitting customers across the country. Some of the key things that are a big focus for the county are a modern online public portal. And with a direct quote from one of your staff members, this gives, better tracking, better accountability, and a better way to manage just the whole department. Consolidating the processes and efforts across departments. What I've seen is a lot of cross-departmental collaboration. This will really streamline all of that. Better internal and applicant communication, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into some further slides. More transparency, which will be talked about quite a bit, and really just an overall faster process for applicants. On average, we see a 5 times faster process, so really getting these permits approved a lot faster on the community side, but then also giving your staff back the critical time that they need, to focus on more priority work. Really enhancing online payments, having online payments all in one location, and then also being able to push that data back into the current accounting system, which is BS&A. Mobile capabilities, so out in the field, being able to complete inspections and record information. This is a really key piece since the county has already partnered with us on their current asset management system. Being able to have an integrated workflow with the county's asset management system, and then also flexibility, that's really a core value proposition here at OpenGov, is really this being not just a great solution for now, but also a great solution for the long term. So if there's any changes that you need to make, although we hold your hand and we provide a lot of support, you really have the flexibility and the usability that you need to make customizations and make changes as things change with the county. So a little bit more about OpenGov. We've been around since 2012 with a mission to power more effective and accountable governments, and we're doing so with entirely cloud-based suites of software. And I already mentioned, some of the metrics that we see: a 5 times faster permitting process and 80% less time spent reporting. We have over 500 customers, as I mentioned, just on permitting, but we have almost 2,000 customers all across the country, and some of them represented here on the right, Hannibal, Missouri, Prairie Village, Kansas, and then some counties across the country as well: Monroe County, Montgomery County, Effingham, just to name a few. One thing to know about OpenGov is we have over 500 years of public sector experience on our team, and actually Gerard's face is down here in the bottom middle. He worked at the City of Fishers for many years on community development and community engagement. Past Gerard, just so you know, these folks are here as a resource to you. They have sat in your shoes, they understand the challenges, and they're willing to hear to support at every stage of the process. So whether that's evaluation, implementation, and then as you're out of implementation and you're a successful customer, all of this knowledge is here really as a resource to you. The county is currently using OpenGov for asset management, but today we'll be talking about an additional suite, which is our permitting and licensing suite. It does sit atop our reporting and transparency platform, so as we get into these last few slides, I will talk a little bit more about the benefits of that reporting and transparency and all the ways that it will streamline being able to visualize data internally, but then also take data to the community if that's something that you're interested in. So really this is just a snapshot of permitting and licensing as a whole. It is a true end-to-end solution, starting with a public portal, which I think is the most important piece. So this is actually a screenshot of what your intuitive public portal would look like. This is a digital storefront for an applicant to come and find any application so that they can start that process and really to go full cycle through the county departments, and then also collect those payments as well. You can see in the middle of the screen, there's a search bar. So for people like me who are not very tech savvy, if I get lost, I can just go to that search bar and it will automatically pull, the permit or any, using any type of keyword, it will pull the section that the applicant needs to go to, because we really want to make this as easy and intuitive as possible to really minimize any of those calls and emails for staff. Once they actually find their digital application, you can see that there's actually help text to really outline what the applicant needs to do, and they can actually select their digital permit And everything is defined and based off conditional logic. So they will not be able to submit the application unless all the required fields are filled out. So no missing information is going to be coming in. And then it's also expandable. So let's say it's a certain type of permit, it can accordion and unveil other types of the application that need to be filled out. So very, very flexible, but really this is just to create a seamless, easy process for the applicants and then route this digital application to county staff. Going to the transparency and the communication piece that we talked about. So this is the view that an applicant would see after submitting their digital application. So they will see this little green check mark. They can see that right now their application is in, they paid their plan review fee and now it's in building review. So they can automatically see what stage the application is in and not have to call and ask, hey, where's my permit? Where is this at? And then they could also message back and forth with the reviewer, and this would come in via the portal, but then also staff would get email notifications as well. This is a quick look at what the workflow would look like internally. So really consolidating and streamlining everything, allowing staff to go through this set of workflow and approvals in much less time, and also automating issuing the permits, of course with the county's branding, and then there's also a QR code here for when inspectors are out in the field, they're automatically able to take a tablet, take a phone, scan that QR code, and pull up any of the information associated to that record or to that permit. So really giving full visibility across many different departments. Reporting and transparency. So this is included with permitting and licensing. You could create reports on the number of permits by type, the number of inspections by type. There is a dashboard, so everyone on the commissioners could have a login and go in and just have that morning cup of coffee view where you could check out key metrics or data that is interesting related to permits or licenses or any inspections. But then also, there's reports that can be pulled, weekly, monthly, and once you create a report, it's going to automate it. So it'll always be updating in real time, so you'll always have the most up-to-date information. And then with this reporting and transparency portal, if you choose, you can take any information. It doesn't just have to be information about permits and licenses. It could really be financial information, any other type of data that you're funneling from other applications. You could flip it and make it transparent to the community. So you could even have a portal that the community could access as well. Lots of different ways that you can use this and just something to think about for the future. Lastly, as we're getting into talking about the integration with permitting and asset management. So they are two separate systems since they're two different workflows, but there will be an integration between the two. So you can actually push permit data back into GIS and really increase the visibility of permitting activity, both inside asset management and then also just avoiding any conflicts to better plan and prevent rework on any type of infrastructure or any other type of work being done, maintenance. Because there's an integration of the workflows, you'll be able to configure this between permitting and asset management. That's something that OpenGov will be doing in the implementation. So you can automatically create tasks in asset management when a workflow step is reached. So once a task is completed, it will communicate that back to permitting along with any keynotes. So there'll be some synergy of the systems talking to each other. So this slide is to help quantify the value for your return on investment. So on average, we see people processing 20% more transactions in their first year, and really this is because of a few reasons, but the main one being compliance. You'll be able to cut staff review hours and workload by 80%. When I spoke with Eric and some of the staff members, I know that some of them were spending as much as half their week, 20 hours or more reviewing permits. So if they're able to cut that down by 80%, gives them a lot of time to focus on other critical work. You'll see increased citizen satisfaction, and right out of the gate, going to an online system, on average we see 75% less calls and emails coming in. You'll still have the flexibility if someone would like to call, they can. If someone would like to pay in person, they can. But on average, we see 75% of people just want to do things online and do things digitally and not have to come down in person, and really cutting down a lot of that manual work. And then lastly, with the current staff that you have, you'll be able to do more with less. So instead of in the future needing to hire another position, you'll be able to process more applications and just do more work in less time. And if you were to compare the cost of OpenGov to hiring another staff member, it's definitely going to be less, especially if you're including benefits and long-term costs. Last slide, talking about pricing. So everything that we're going to talk about here is going to include all of the critical items. So there's going to be no surprise costs in the future. So unlimited users, unlimited data, training, setup, configuration during deployment, and then outside of deployment, the county will have a dedicated customer success manager who can do additional training, all unlimited and at no cost. So for year one of the annual licensing fee, it's actually prorated because we are hoping to get this project started right away so that the county could be live with this portal and this streamlined workflow for 2024. So the prorated amount for the annual licensing fee would be $19,831, and then you can see the pricing for year 2 and year 3 goes to the full annual licensing fee. So in year 2 it's $49,974, and year 3 $52,472. And as I mentioned, this includes unlimited users, unlimited data, unlimited usage, that customer success manager, and then actually quarterly feature releases as well. Because every quarter we're making small and sometimes larger, more impactful updates to the platform so that you always have something high functioning, and we're continuing to gather feedback and make new releases based off of what will streamline your operations the most. Looking at the professional services cost, this is for a one-time deployment fee, so it will be 116 hours, and that is a discounted professional services rate of $195, so it makes the implementation cost $22,620. So the total year one costs are $42,451, and the total discounts over 3 years for the county, just because you're already a current customer and we know that everyone has different resources and we're really committed to getting this project started right away. The total discounts are $93,607. Thank you very much. This ends my part of the presentation, but of course we're here to answer any questions.
So Jess, I appreciate it a lot. I guess, County Commission, do you have any questions about anything right now?
I guess with the unlimited users, someone who's inquisitive but has read only or view only, that can happen or not?
Jess, did you hear that? Unlimited users, that can be anybody. For example, our local Home Builders Association, if they wanted to access permit data, types of permits and quantity and all that, they could get in there and get it, correct?
Absolutely, and we can set different permissions, so they would just be, a user with seeing certain data or maybe participating in one part of the process, so we can set different permissions. They would be, an administrator, so we'll have training for an administrator, and then also, end user training. So absolutely, you could have as many people as you like in there, and you could limit what they see and what they collaborate on. And then when it comes to the applicant side, they could even add a guest user. So if someone is submitting a permit, they could add a third-party contractor or a guest to also collaborate on their side as well.
Jess, we didn't get into too much on the utility and excavation and right-of-way permitting, nor did we talk much about the licensing, but those are other components that will work within this system. Licensing, contractor licensing, there's yearly licenses that the contractors have to have. That's all tracked through here. The utility permits kind of handled very similar to the building permits, just a different process, a different type of permit. We have to track and inspect those as well, so that would be part of this. Additionally, on utilities, we tend to have a lot of issues with contractors not coming up, cleaning up. They call the commission a lot, get a lot of complaints for utility work in people's yards. Through this, we could add in where they would have to supply a bond. for work that they're doing, and we have a better way to track that. So that would all be rolled into this.
That's such a great point, Eric, and thank you for confirming that. So under the permitting and licensing suite, it shows the bullet points. So it will be building permits and inspectional services, all the public works permits like utility and right-of-way, contractor licensing, and then also rental registration would be included in this as well.
So that's rental of park pavilions and things like that, yeah. And OpenGov has the potential to go well beyond just what we're doing. But as far as the component that we would be looking at, it would be just us, Public Works. Also, the sewer, or the health department, they would be a user of this, and they would track all their sewer permits along with ours, so. Anything else?
So what about implementation? Has Brian looked into this at all? Will it, because I've seen some of the reviews said really IT had not had to be involved. It was fairly simple. So is this gonna be so simple that Jeff could use it and train? I mean, I'm your poster boy here, so.
So Jess, the question was, Brian, he's our IT director, getting the IT department involved. How do you work with them? How much coordination is there with that?
Yeah, I'd say on the implementation, it would be great if they're involved at least at a small capacity, just to help validate everything and test. But once you're outside of deployment, really what we say is it's so easy and flexible to make changes on your own that you don't need to involve IT, but we always encourage them if they want to join any of the implementation calls. We'll provide you all of the information that we'll need to actually, your project manager and your implementation analyst and you actually have a whole implementation team. We'll provide you really what the meetings and what the structure will be like to actually set this up. We're doing all the heavy lifting, but we'll talk a little bit more in your project kickoff call about what we need from the county, and then you can decide if you just want to bring in IT or if you want to forward information to them and do it that way. But we would love to have them involved.
Okay, along those same lines then, this is all cloud-based then? We don't have to have a server to store all of this, right? Is that the way I understand it?
That is correct. It is true modern cloud software, so everything is hosted in the cloud on Amazon Web Services. And we're also SOC 2 certified, which is not a lot of companies can say that, so it just means that, we put a lot of, we have a lot of standardization, we put a lot of effort into, security and reliability.
I guess that would probably be my next question, is the security part of it and making sure that it was secure, so.
Yeah, and I can actually, what I can do after this call is we have a great link that I can forward you that tells a little bit more of that information, and I can send that to Eric and he can share with y'all.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I really don't have any questions. I mean, we talked about it last week a little bit before the meeting, and it was rather expensive, but it seems like a great tool. I think it'd be very useful for the citizens and for Public Works and possibly Health Department and on down the line, so it's definitely something we want to look at. Were you looking at for 24?
So, couple options.
Or this isn't a question for
Yeah,
them.
this is
sorry.
The goal today is just get in front of you and discuss a couple options, possibly next week or following weeks as far as implementation. If we decide we want to do it now, or now's the time to decide, hey, let's put it in our budget for next year, or not. So I would want to know that going into submitting our budget. And then a follow-up to that would be if we're gonna go forward with it next year, we can start implementation now. And that was the prorated amounts and everything that she had mentioned. So that would be this follow-up. If we're gonna do it, do we wait until the first of the year or do we just go ahead and do it now?
Isn't, in a way, sooner the better? I mean, every day that you put something in Cartograph, you could have put it here. Is that, or is it gonna convert over, or?
The two will communicate with each other, yes.
Right.
But we can still keep working in Cartograph. That doesn't affect this any, but just when we get this up and going, then we can fully implement other things. There's other things we need to work on the planning and building permit side. our permit fees are outdated, we're working on that. The time to roll all that in is when all this goes live, will probably be the best time. Building codes is something we need to look at updating, that's a long process, so having everything in place sooner than later is good.
Has health weighed in on this?
Yes, they were in on one of the demos that was done. I talked to them a few times afterwards, and they would be a user of the system, and they would do their inspections through this in the same way that we do. The good thing about having them as a user, their inspectors would have access and would know when certain things are beginning and certain or how homes or whatever are beginning, and when we go out and do an inspection, they'll have that access to that as well.
So when Joe's out there walking around the junk cars, he might be looking at an iPad and seeing what
Well,
the latest work.
We hadn't really talked about that, Jess, but there is an ordinance, a nuisance ordinance that the county has.
Right.
Could be part of this, I suppose, but it was really just sewer related or
On-site
on-site
wastewater
sewer,
treatment.
wastewater treatment systems. Not like septic tanks, lagoons, and
Well, I mean, he has a number of jobs in process, and he's working with these people, trying to, in terms of improvements. And anyway, I think he could be out there clicking pictures and zipping it right into that iCloud. And when he comes back a month later, he can look at that guy and say, look what you haven't done the last month. I think it all fits together very well.
it can, yes.
Could.
Good, yeah. So, anything else? Okay,
No.
Jess, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and get off, and then I'm sure we'll talk in the next few days or next week and kind of keep you up to date on where we stand.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for the time. I will forward that link to Eric right now so that he can share it on our security and how we approach that, because we know that that's really critical. And then just to jump in on what you were talking about, just to make it clear, this system can handle code enforcement. So if that's something that there's unlimited service areas that we could look at in the future. Basically, we're very flexible, can handle many different types of use cases. So if code enforcement is an important piece, also something that can be handled through this in the future, just to keep in mind.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Okay, final discussion of county-owned vehicle policy revision and commuting issues.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I think this issue has 2 points. One, I believe that we've come to a consensus over the volunteer sections being amended so that can include the operation and passengers and vehicles.
I sent out that draft amendment to you and
Okay.
add in there.
Okay.
The word change for the volunteers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. We also might need them in section 2 as well, where it talks about, well, it does say authorized passengers, doesn't it? Okay, all right, yeah, that should be okay. Yeah, I think that works out much better and covers that aspect of what emergency management has is, of course, the hazmat team, and they have several vehicles, and so that gives them the ability to operate those vehicles for the purposes of, their responsibilities.
So, since you voted on enacting the policy, I guess you would have to vote on amending the policy to include volunteers specifically.
Did that come to us in a email?
My email last week, I think Wednesday or Thursday. I have a copy if you'd like to see it.
You need that one.
Attached to the agenda.
Oh, I think I put it in.
There, it's just simple.
Thank you.
The first page over in the it's in red, so that's easily findable.
There's some items in here that, as I reviewed it, would propose maybe some amendments as well, but I need to visit with Sheila on that, and there's several that I need to go through. I just haven't had time to really look at it. So I don't know if we do that and then do the later one, or try to go along together as one. I don't want to spend any more time on it than we have to, but
Is it substantial stuff, or is it just, what is yours?
there's the miles per year item that I'm not sure that fits with everything that we do. And this is just small things, and I think there's some room in here for discretion of the director or other reasons, so I don't know that it's critical.
So is it affecting people that are gonna be charged for it now then? Cause we only, how many did we have, Sheila, at the end of the day?
13, I believe, in public
13, so
works,
is it,
2 in maintenance.
That is not even that, that's just,
Right, this is a policy issue,
Policy.
not the IRS issue.
The 12,000,
That's-
if you read further on the 12,000 miles, it says or appointed by an elected official, which is the commissioners. So they can appoint assign or appoint a vehicle to someone, even if it's driven less than 12,000 miles a year based on the job description and need. So the 12,000 is the IRS guideline, but it does give the commissioners the right to assign a vehicle outside of that.
Did this 12.5 number come from the IRS, or did it come from a cut and paste from the
It
state
comes from
thing?
the IRS guideline.
Really?
That's
I mean,
why we amended that section for our needs to say or appointed.
Yeah, I
Because
think
some are
because,
assigned.
there might be a vehicle in the assessor's office that does 10,000
Yes,
miles a year,
most
but
of our
they still,
vehicles don't drive.
Right.
12,000 a year that are still.
as long as we have the override authority.
Yes.
I don't know Ralph, what are you doing a year?
Well, I estimate I do about 15 a year.
Okay.
And Ralph and I have discussed his at length. Did you have any additional concerns?
No, I
We
just
don't.
want to make sure what I'm reporting every month is my trips to and from my house to the courthouse.
Purely
But-
commuting.
Yeah, but during the day, if I'm making trips to nursing homes, that doesn't
No,
count.
that doesn't count as commuting. It truly is home from work, work at home.
Okay, but one other question that came up. If I'm visiting somebody in Franklin County, that's eastern Missouri, I will go from my house to there and back. And depending on the length of the meeting, I may not even come into the courthouse.
That would be appropriate. If it's closer to head to that destination directly from your home,
So
that would be
I
appropriate.
have to record it.
You would need to make a note that that wasn't purely a commuting route.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, that's in the tax guide to fringe benefits, that
It's
12,500?
The 30 pages of 15B, it
Okay.
refers to 12.
Just a quick search, it doesn't show that unless, well, hold on, let me look it up. By number, it does not show
I've
that.
got the 30 pages if you'd like to review them completely. I don't mind putting off the revision approval another week so that we can,
I'd rather do that,
Scratch
because
out
doing a
these
piecemeal is kind of, I'd rather just get it done and move ahead.
So what I would propose is, by the end of the week, I'll get Sheila my comments.
that would be great.
And that way you know things that I'm looking at, that we already know the one that Nick's brought up, and try to do it all at once.
I propose that the policy is a separate issue, just like Nick said, the commuting rate is an issue that I don't think needs to be put off. It's per IRS guidelines and council.
And that's the,
Right, and so if you all are ready to move on to the second issue.
Okay, so maybe next week, we're going to have Eric's comments and another red line item or two in here.
I'm fine with
Okay.
that. And if you want to hear Nick's position and then put it all off together, that's fine.
Okay.
I think I have responses to most of his concerns.
Okay.
So the second is the IRS 15B document, and what would qualify as a non-personal use vehicle is identified within that document. And under emergency management, and we would qualify our vehicles as non-personal use. the non-personal use guidelines are clearly marked police, fire, and public safety vehicles that provide any personal use, provided that any personal use of the vehicle other than commuting is prohibited by the government unit. We have in our policy provisions that say under vehicle usage, section 3E, that it shall be used for county business only. So that provides that provision. And then the vehicle marking, I think, was my only point. If we prefer that maybe that sticker that's on the back of the vehicle or the license plates would not be maybe deemed as clearly marked, that if we wanted to add the county seal or the words emergency management in larger letters, maybe on the sides of the vehicle, that I would be agreeable to any of that. But my argument is the IRS gives us provisions because these are not to be used as personal vehicles. Therefore, it's classified under this 15B document. I've checked with other counties. The only two that responded were Callaway and Camden counties, and they don't have this added on to their benefits package and pay into it. Well, however it works out, they don't have to. They're qualified non-personal use vehicles, so they don't have to add that on to their W-2s.
Unfortunately, I got a response from Boone. Boone does consider the commuting rate as valid, and they charge their EMA person commuting rates on their EMA vehicles.
Well, several counties don't.
Boone is the one we most often compare ourselves to, and they.
But I think we've done our due diligence between Sheila and Jill, what we need to do. I mean, we didn't make this change necessarily because we wanted to, it was because it was something that we thought was required to comply with the IRS.
And they also had auditors recommendations.
And auditors, that's right. So that's where it kind of started there. So.
Let Jill weigh in on this maybe.
Thank you, Nick. What Nick is quoting is, yes, the IRS rule. When the federal government and the state, for that matter, promulgates regulations and rules, they put the rule out there, and then there's a comment period. And then interested parties can submit comments about the rule, maybe changes to it. So in this case, this is from the Federal Register, and this details the process when that particular rule was promulgated back in, 2010, I believe? Yes, when it was published. Anyway, so this details the comments they got and what the IRS's stance was at the time when they proposed these regulations. Okay, so they tied the definition of public safety officer to another statute, which is unrelated. It addresses benefits for first responders, and incorporated their definition of public safety officer. And what the definition was then was that shall have the same meaning given by the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act. An individual serving a public agency in an official capacity with or without compensation as a law enforcement officer, firefighter, chaplain, or as a member of a rescue squad or ambulance crew. Okay. So that definition then, rescue squad or ambulance crew is a squad or crew whose members are rescue workers, ambulance drivers, paramedics, healthcare responders, EMTs, or other similar workers who are trained in rescue activity or the provision of emergency medical services. And as such, they have the legal authority and responsibility to engage in rescue activity or provide emergency medical services. So that is what it's limited to. Also, what is notable, some of the commenters suggested that they expand that definition, and they wanted to include employees who respond to local disasters such as flash floods, pipeline ruptures, hazmat, bridge collapses. Additionally, commenters suggested that child protective service workers, emergency management personnel, and members of incident management teams be incorporated in that definition. The IRS declined to expand the definition to include those job titles. So the intent then was not to include emergency management. And it says an individual's job title is not determinative of his or her status as a public safety officer. Instead, the determination is made based on the facts and circumstances of the individual's employment, including their training, legal authority, and legal responsibility. So I guess the point of this is that from the Federal Register, it's clear that at the time the IRS promulgated this rule, that the exempt employees include law enforcement, fire, and EMS. So Sheila and I looked into this and we discussed it, and so anyway, this sheds some light on the intent of the IRS. That's all I have.
I can't go anymore. Excuse yourself. I'm excusing myself.
If I may, to further go into the section of the 15B that Nick was talking about, it does specifically address pickup trucks, and it talks about loaded gross vehicle weight, which I assume Nick's assigned truck is, has a gross loaded vehicle weight of less than that. But it also says it is included, a pickup is included as a non-qualified personal use vehicle if it has been specifically modified so that it isn't likely to be used more than minimally for personal purposes. And then it goes into how the modifications have to be done. It says it has to be equipped with at least one of these items, a hydraulic lift gate. Does yours have a lift gate, Nick? No? Permanent extra drums.
That section wouldn't apply to you.
It does apply, Nick. Your vehicle is not specifically nor specially modified.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so it doesn't meet the specially modified.
I'm conceding to that section. Yes.
Okay, so then it is just much like my vehicle would be, you're using it for commuting purposes to get back and forth in your situation. My understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, while you're supposed to be able to respond to emergency calls 24 hours a day, you don't respond to many, not very often, on a very frequent basis, and you live 4 miles from the emergency management shed. So if there was an emergency, it's very likely you're gonna have to go get equipment anyway, since it's not always in that pickup truck when you drive around for other purposes. So my contention would be that if the commuting rate is out of line, that it would be easier simply to park that truck at the EMA shed, and when you have an emergency, you drive that 4 miles and go get it while you load up the other equipment and then respond to the emergency.
But if there's a way around it, I'd rather not have to do the whole charging for personal use anyway. But apparently there's not, so.
I would like to add to the, Sheila, you brought up pickup trucks. Most of our vehicles do fall under that. We have trucks that have utility bodies on them, ladder racks, fuel tanks. One is actually above the 14,000. It's a 550, a flatbed truck that is taken home.
And it's used for emergency response?
Not always, but a lot of times it is.
Okay, so we could break out the number of times one is used for an emergency, perhaps much like Ralph's scenario, where he's going straight to a client.
So they're still gonna have to
Yeah.
report, they're gonna have to keep track of the mileage, it's still a pain in the butt.
And or the number of.
I don't
trips.
like it as much as y'all don't like it. We've got guys that take trucks home and they've been called out to cut a tree off of a road. So they do use it in those instances, and it is an emergency vehicle.
It happens more often than you think, and it can happen at any given time. Nobody knows when.
I agree.
Well, I certainly
I'm not gonna argue that at all.
Night in the storm, but I went to Russellville and Logan to make sure that when radar indicated rotation, that there wasn't any damage that wasn't being reported over there. I mean, that's not outside of the purview of my job.
Correct. And that is an emergency, so that would that would definitely qualify under some of the other scenarios. What is your opposition to being charged? Is it because it's high, or because it's purely unreasonable or unexpected, or?
It doesn't seem like, and again, you gave the example of Boone County, but I have 2 other counties that don't do this for their emergency management personnel. So it just doesn't seem like it's the norm within at least the region that I know of. And so that's my opposition, is other counties are not doing this, although we know Boone County is. And so that's my opposition.
But that's where we're dependent on our employees, in this instance, HR and legal, to guide us and tell us what are we supposed to do to comply. Because just because other counties, Camden being one of them, I don't know if you catch what goes on in Camden County, but I'm not saying I necessarily want to follow them. So.
And Well, and I just want to go back to what I think is the definitive answer, and it's clear from the Federal Register during the rulemaking process that the IRS did not elect to include categories beyond EMS and rescue workers, which we don't have what I would call a rescue worker. I think the fire departments act more in that capacity. And I think that's the definitive answer. Through the comment period, it's clear that the IRS did not elect to include emergency management and other categories of workers. So if we would get audited for underreporting, that's what they would look at.
I think the trip method, the $3 a day, is not anywhere not acceptable. Versus the mileage would be more for most people.
I'm going to go with Jill on this, and at the end of the day, $3 a day times,
22 working days per month average.
okay, so 22 working days a month. Let's do the math here real quick.
$66 a month, $720.
$66 a month.
$720 a year approximately.
Okay, $720, marginal tax rate of 30%. That's $240, is that right? $240 a year is what this is costing you. I would love to pay $240 to have a commuting vehicle. I think it's a fantastic perk to have a commuting vehicle at that.
And if for some reason it is used for an emergency response from home, then that day would be.
It could be easily noted on the form and/or in timesheets, and it could be removed from the calculation.
And actually, if you take 2 weeks off or 3 weeks of vacation,
Not charged for those days either.
right, yeah, so.
So, Harry and everybody, I got a few things to add. And Harry, I do agree that the fee or the amount is minimal. It's been that way for me since I started. That was allowed to me whenever I was hired on. Doesn't matter to me. Matt's got the same situation as well as Brian. So this doesn't affect us at all.
Right.
It does affect the other 11 that were asked to take a vehicle home based on what they have to do and what their requirements are to do their job. The vehicle they take home is not one to go ride around in. It's truly a work vehicle. Some more so than others, just depends on what it is. As I look at this, so a qualified non-personal use vehicle would be a police car, and so they're not charged, they don't pay anything on that no matter what.
Right.
Is that correct? In that same page, it lists the pickup trucks.
Which is a separate section from the police and public safety one.
Okay.
And that's what's specifically modified.
So my specific question is, those vehicles that would fall under these qualified non-personal use, is that they have to keep track of each time they go in on emergency or not, or it doesn't really talk about emergency?
I think it just makes them exempt.
It just makes them exempt?
Yeah, those are two separate sections. There's the public safety section and then the pickup truck section, and they're not to be read together.
Okay, so the pickup trucks, they're exempt from this, is that what
If they fit those descriptions.
Okay. I just need a definitive, this is it, or this is, and maybe it's as simple as giving you all a picture of what the truck is.
And that would be very.
That would be the simplest, that way I know for sure, because, you know, we had to tell our folks, all 11 of them, that, hey, you're gonna have to start paying this, you know, and that's something new to them. It doesn't matter who you are or whatever, the initial reaction is, oh, this sucks, okay, to be honest with you. So, to know that maybe they don't have to, I just need a definitive yes.
If they fit under, Eric, they have each of those descriptions there, if it has this or this or this. If they fit under one of those, then it would be exempt.
Okay. I think the best thing would be we got our sheet that has every vehicle, who takes them, who doesn't. We can get you that, we can get you a picture of it and a description of it, and then we'll make a determination based on that. Is that fair?
I think
The
so.
modifications and stuff.
Because then it would
I-
qualify as a non-personal vehicle.
I don't have a dog in this race, I don't have a county vehicle. So this simply came about because of the auditor's recommendations. And personally, it doesn't matter to me whether you pay it or not, I know that you do, and I know that Matt does, and I know that Brian does. I know that there are others that take home vehicles, some of it is just because of rank in the position and the possibility that they may be called out. I understand those provisions and why that's done. So again, I don't have a dog in the race. I don't have a personal stake in whether or not anybody pays $3 a day for a vehicle. Again, it was brought about by the auditors.
And I will add that, yes, it is nice to have that. However, it's not always convenient for us. When we have to trade vehicles and whatnot, it does provide inconvenience. So I guess that's the trade-off, you know, it's.
And just a minor correction, it's not, doesn't cost $3 a day.
$3 a day round trip.
No, it doesn't. It costs the tax on $3.
Correct, yes, you're
And
right.
that's about $1.
Yes, you're right. It is taxable wages. $3 a day computed trip is the basis for that tax.
Right, so the income goes up by $3 that day, taxes go up by $1. Not by, you know, it doesn't cost that employee $3 out of their pocket, it costs them $1 out of their, it's marginal tax rate times $3, probably 30%.
You are correct, thank you.
Very minimal.
Very minimal.
But we can just get it defined exactly what and go forward. I think it's fair.
And then we'll have to take up with that if the vehicle changes, that'll be your all's responsibility. Let us know.
As a new vehicle like changed out or, okay.
If they still qualify because of that, if they do.
I don't wanna prolong this or anything at all, but tied to vehicles and purchasing and all that, and very relevant to the discussion is, we're beginning a life cycle program with our vehicles. We're gonna add all the other county vehicles that are under central maintenance now, and have that in that as well. So maybe that's reflected in here, a plan for replacement.
Well, I think you would just be careful, if someone is driving a beat-up old truck with a Tommy lift on it and this and all, and the towing bar and all that kind of stuff, and then he gets a new vehicle, if he wants to still be clean and green, he gets the same add-ons, you know. But if he just gets a Ranchero, or what was that Chevy called?
El Camino.
The El Camino, and it's got.
Sam
it's a
wants
passenger
an El
vehicle with
Camino.
a big bed in it, too bad, right? But it puts the Tommy lift on there and all that. It's equal.
Okay.
So by next week, we'll have your edits on this other part.
Do we want to open it up just as a precaution to make sure that everybody has looked at it, or they've had ample time to look at it?
Anybody that's affected by it is probably
Very few departments.
looked at it, and I think you're looking at different sections of it, so it is confusing. But, I mean, bottom line is, if you don't want the $3 assessed, or your taxes up by $1, park it and drive back and forth. I mean, it kinda sucks if you have planning commission meeting here at 5:15, we get done usually shortly after. Well, you gotta drive back to Public Works and pick up your vehicle and drive back home. Nobody wants to do that, so, then, I don't know, if you're driving across town doing the same thing, I don't see you as in many meetings as Eric and I get to sit in, but, I mean, there's a trade-off to it all. And it wasn't anything that we brought up, it was the outside auditors that brought this up, so we're just trying to comply, so.
Yeah, I understand that.
But, I mean, if you find something in there that you think would work, I think run it by Sheila. Sheila's been gracious enough to answer all our emails about it too, because we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance and giving everybody a fair shake. Last thing we wanted to do is be charging y'all some more money affecting your salaries, so.
I will commit to getting you something by Friday. In my defense, we did have a issue going on there that's kind of taken precedent, with the fuel deal. I just, so,
Can we just put it back on the agenda for next week? the
Right.
bylaw?
Yeah, and if nothing, we don't have anything to talk about, then we can just take it back off. But, yeah, if there's something we need to change in there, it's a living, breathing document, it's a policy, so we can work with it.
I guess under old business, we could just for a minute, you have sent a notice to the carrier of the contractor on the leak.
Yes.
Right.
I did this morning.
Okay.
Did you talk to Jeff?
Yes, yesterday afternoon, or I emailed him. He found that email address.
Yeah, they're out of Bermuda.
I did get a response back, and I'll let
There's a
you know.
reason for that. It's offshore. It's an offshore insurance carrier. There's a reason for that. Not a nefarious one, but.
I did get an email back saying they respond between 1 and 2 days. So, we'll see.
Okay. I think you might be in charge here since you're the senior member up here.
All right, anything else to come before the commission today? I'll entertain a motion to stand in recess until 4:30.
So moved.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right. Very good. Hey, Eric?
I mean, I can send it to you in a tracking change.
No closed session on that.